Labour. Today, I've announced that we in the UK will send an additional 6,000 missiles and provide £25 million in unrestricted funding for Ukraine's armed forces, more than doubling the lethal aid we've provided to date. We're bolstering our support for the NATO countries on the front line, sending a new deployment of UK troops to Bulgaria on top of doubling our troops both in Poland and in Estonia. This is just the beginning. We must support a free and democratic Ukraine in the long term. This is a fellow European democracy fighting a war of national defence. NATO and G7 leaders were also united today in our determination to continue turning the screws on the Kremlin's war machine, including by weaning ourselves off Russian oil and gas and reshaping global energy security. The UK has already hit over 1,000 Russian individuals and entities in our toughest ever sanctions, and the Foreign Secretary has announced 65 new sanctions against Russian banks, weapons manufacturers and oligarchs just this morning. I also discussed the humanitarian response with our allies and partners today as we continue to see huge numbers of Ukrainians flee their homes. And the message that President Putin can take from today's extraordinary meeting of NATO and the G7 is this: Ukraine is not alone. We stand with the people of Kiev, of Mariupol, of Lviv and Donetsk. And as President Zelensky has said himself, the people of Ukraine will prevail, and Putin must fail, and he will fail. Thank you all very much, and I'm going to take a few questions from as many of you as I can, though we have to rush for a plane. Let's go to Nick Beak of the BBC. Nick.
Prime Minister, thanks very much. You say that you're sending to Ukraine. Thank you, Prime Minister. You say that you're sending the quality and quantity of weapons that Ukraine deserves and needs, but it was clear from what President Zelensky was saying to you and other world leaders that he would like more. So first of all, are you comfortable with the level of weapons you're sending collectively? And secondly, how uncomfortable does it make you feel that by rolling out a no-fly zone, by ruling out NATO troops on the ground in Ukraine, and by refusing to give any sort of indication of red lines, that really the only end to this is when President Putin decides he's had enough?
Thanks very much, Nick. And you're right to put your finger on the agony that everybody feels in this group, all Western countries, the whole of NATO, the G7, about our inability to do more to help given the constraints we face. And I think it's fair to say that there isn't a Western democracy that's currently contemplating putting boots on the ground in Ukraine. And we've got to be clear about that. Nor is there a country that is willing to enforce a no-fly zone in the way that we would so like to, but unfortunately it does mean air-to-ground attacks on Russian air defences, and it does mean taking down Russian fast jets and asking the RAF to do that. That's not something that any country here is contemplating. What we are doing is steadily ratcheting up the movement of lethal but defensive weaponry to Ukraine, and that is growing in volume the whole time. And what the Americans are doing and what they have done is really quite extraordinary already, and the UK is proud of what we've contributed. I'll go to Sam Coates of Sky.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Sam Coates of Sky News. President Zelensky, interestingly, didn't repeat his call for a no-fly zone when he addressed NATO leaders. Instead, he was very, very specific. He wants tanks and jets. Are NATO members, is the United Kingdom going to give him tanks and jets? And if not, why not?
Thanks, Sam. He did indeed call for tanks, and there's a particular reason for that. What President Zelensky wants is to try to relieve Mariupol and to help the thousands of Ukrainian fighters in the city. To that end, he does need armour as he sees it. We're looking at what we can do to help, but I've got to tell you, logistically at the moment, it looks very difficult, but both with armour and with jets. We're very conscious of what he's asking for. At the moment, we're looking at the equipment that we think is more immediately valuable is missiles that will enable the Ukrainians to protect themselves against bombardment from the air, but also to deal with the Grad rocket launchers, the Russian heavy artillery. That is doing such dealing such death and destruction in the cities. And there, I think, if we can really help them, that would be extremely valuable, because they need protection from that absolutely merciless onslaught from artillery and from the rocket launchers.
Hours ago, North Korea launched what is believed to have been an intercontinental ballistic missile into the sea. Officials in South Korea and Japan say, if verified, it would be the first complete test showing the capabilities and the range of Pyongyang's largest missile since 2017. So we're going to head on over to Lucy Kraft, who is in Tokyo, for more on the details surrounding this launch. Lucy.
Yes, Japan's defense ministry said a new type of ICBM reached an altitude of close to 4,000 miles before crashing in waters west of Japan. The missile was in the air for about 70 minutes, flying a distance of about 700 miles. The launch occurred while President Biden was in Europe for a round of summits, starting with NATO leaders on the Ukraine crisis. Speaking from Brussels, where the Group of Seven is also gathering, Japanese Prime Minister Kishida called the ICBM launch reckless and unacceptable. He said that additional sanctions on Pyongyang in coordination with the U.S. and South Korea were on the table. The missile was launched from North Korea's east coast. The provocation marks the first time North Korea has tested a banned ICBM since 2017. It caps an unusual upsurge in missile testing this year as Pyongyang prepares to mark the 110th anniversary of the birth of founder Kim Il-sung, the grandfather of current leader Kim Jong-un. Today's launch signals the end of North Korea's moratorium on nuclear and ICBM testing as the isolated nation seeks to pressure Washington back to the negotiating table. Anne-Marie?
Lucy, thank you very much.
Thank you.